Good morning, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. First and foremost, before I deliver my speech, I want to wholeheartedly recognize the presence of His Excellency, Ambassador Fode Malang, who is the Gambian ambassador to Qatar. I equally want to recognize and appreciate the presence of my senior, retired Vice Admiral Awal Zubairu Gambu from the Federal Republic of Nigeria, retired but not tired. It is an honor to speak on the critical topic of policing a democratic society in complex times, the Gambian experience. In an era defined by rapid technological change, social unrest, and global interconnectedness, the role of policing has never been more challenging. Foundation of policing in democracy. First, let us acknowledge that in a democratic society, policing is not just about law enforcement, it's about protecting the very essence of democracy, liberty, equality, and justice. The police are the guardians of public order, but also the rights and freedoms that define our society. This dual role requires a delicate balance. On that respect, the rule of law, while fostering trust and legitimacy among the citizenry. Challenges in modern times. Complexity is largely synonymous with challenges. Most of the time, we are uncertain about the context, environment, and even the specific kind of challenges we have to deal with. Be that as it may, we can't throw up our hands in the air and say, we have no idea what we are dealing with here, so we can't do it. Doing that will amount to dereliction of duty. And as the police are charged with enforcing the laws, we cannot do that because it will lead to chaos and lawlessness. Nobody wants a society to degenerate into that kind of situation. We have worked so hard to get here. Some people were battered and bruised, others forced to flee, some imprisoned for questioning dictatorial authority, others pay the ultimate price. We salute them for their sacrifices and pledge to carry on the struggle against undemocratic forces who want to continue oppressing us against our will. In doing so, the police forces, the most intelligent undertaking in modern times, use mental models to simulate reality. Although a most challenging endeavor, simulating reality, we attempt it to better understand our environment and its constituent components. The late great United States investor, Charles Munger, said this about mental models. You must know the big ideas in the big disciples and use them routinely, not just a few. As Charlie said this, mental models are useful tools for understanding the world, making critical decisions, and solving problems by leveraging the collective wisdom of several fields of knowledge. In our case, that's the case of the Gambia, we use mental models to make sense of the policing environment and planning our responses to the public security challenges. In this regard, I will attempt to tackle 4 challenges, namely technological advancement, social dynamics, economic disparities, and globalization. I will say a few things about the impact of each component on policing in the Gambia and the measures we put in place to mitigate those challenges. 1, technological advancements. We are in the information age where technology can both aid policing and challenge civil liberties. It is the proverbial double-edged sword that cuts both ways. Therefore, you must handle it with extreme care. You don't want to violate the rights of people you are trying to protect. The use of facial recognition, predictive policing algorithms, and big data might enhance security, but they also raise profound ethical questions about privacy and potential biases. We've got to navigate through these waters with transparency and accountability. The Gambian experience. Social media has given users a platform to sell their products and services to a much larger audience today, as opposed to just the local market in the bygone era. Before the advent of social media, people were only restricted to their local town square markets, but nowadays, a beauty soap maker could sell to Gambians in the Gambia and in the diaspora. In the same way that the soap maker could reach clients outside the territorial jurisdiction of the country, Gambians overseas could also use social media to destabilize the country by broadcasting hate speech to listeners, followers, using social media platforms like Instagram, WhatsApp, and YouTube. As a police force, we created the cybercrime unit to investigate and gather digital evidence that is used to prosecute such cases. We sanitized the public discourse by arresting 2 musicians that published songs with profanities and processing them for prosecution as we stand here today. Equally, we have arrested political party agents that publish audio recordings that are considered to be hate speech. Those suspects are equally being processed for trials. 2, social dynamics. Social media has democratized information, but also complicated the narrative around policing. Misinformation can lead to public distrust or even incite violence. Officers must not only keep the peace, but also manage the narrative, ensuring their actions are understood and justified by the community they serve. Enter strategic communications. Citizens are now armed with mobile devices that can broadcast events in real time. Some people weaponize this capability to dominate the public space. The police responds to such instances with a narrative that will present cold, hard facts that could not be disputed even in a competent court of law. Gambia Police Force has a very robust social media presence that shares information about incidents and occurrences in a timely manner to fill any information gap and reassure the general public. 3, economic disparities. Economic inequality affects crime rates and community trust in law enforcement. Policing must be sensitive to these disparities, ensuring that enforcement does not further marginalize already vulnerable population, but instead work towards uplifting and integrating them. The new policing paradigm is focused on human-centered security. The citizen is the focus of this modern approach. In our policing doctrine, developed in partnership with the Geneva Center for Security Sector Governance, DCAF, this is clearly outlined under key theme 4 titled Policing Ethos. Under sub-theme 4.2, we said, Gambia Police Force will develop open and respectful working relationship with communities to encourage shared ownership of problems, improve accountability, and joint identification of solutions. GPF, which stands for Gambia Police Force, will strengthen community confidence and trust by empowering communities to participate in solutions to local problems. We have been very successful in the implementation of community policing initiatives across the country. In partnership with the UNDP and GIZ Police Program Africa, joint EU-German support to Gambia Police Force, we have conducted joint caravans and outreach programs in 23 districts in urban and rural Gambia. These caravans include regular police officers, police prosecutors, civil society representatives, and development partners. During the meetings, respective team members will sensitize the community members about diverse topics such as crime prevention, how to report crimes, toll-free lines to report sexual and gender-based violent offenses, 1313 is the toll-free number, how to preserve evidence before the police get to the crime scene, where to report police misconduct cases, etc., etc. These partnerships have been very helpful in building trust between the police and the community members. In some villages, police officers participate in local football tournaments to win the hearts and minds of the locals. Community policing officers also organize school visitation campaigns to sensitize the young and vulnerable youth about the dangers of drug abuse and criminal activities. These community policing initiatives brought the citizens and the police closer to each other and could be regarded as one of the reasons we are singled out for this award ceremony in Doha, Qatar. Globalization. Crimes are no longer confined by borders. Issues like cybercrime, human trafficking, terrorism demand a policing strategy that is as international as the threats themselves. This requires cooperation not just within nations, but across them. In the Gambia, we are leveraging our international network to combat transnational organized crime. We have excellent cooperation with our Senegalese neighbors, wherein if a criminal commits an offense in the Gambia and slips over to the border to Senegal, we can invoke the hot pursuit principle and arrest them in Senegal and take them back to the Gambia to face justice. And here, for those of you who might not be too familiar with the tiny nation of the Gambia, 3 sides of our country is surrounded by the sister Republic of Senegal. We only have a second neighbor, which is the 4th opening, and that's the Atlantic Ocean. In other instances, moving on, we will share the criminal's profile with our Senegalese police for them to arrest and hand them over to us for necessary legal processing. Recently did this in the case of a stolen luxury vehicle that was recovered and returned to the legitimate owner in Senegal. November 2024, a Senegalese fugitive was arrested at Banjul International Airport, who was processed for possible handover to the Senegalese authorities to face the full wrath of the law. We are equally using the West Africa Police Information System, WAPIS, and Interpol to share criminal intelligence with our partners in the region and across the world. Through this initiative, we have tracked so many stolen vehicles from Banjul to Guinea-Bissau, from Spain, from Canada to France, and elsewhere in the United States. Conclusion. Distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, it is evident that policing a democratic society in complex times is a tricky endeavor. A combination of different approaches is required for success to be attained. The traditional reactive policing style is not quite helpful. In the Gambia, we have used the proactive approach to prevent, disrupt, and mitigate crimes. I am not sure if our approach will work in other contexts, but if I am to recommend to my colleagues in the security fraternity, I will recommend that you maintain a delicate balance of proactive policing coupled with reactive style. Lean more on the proactive style because it helps in crime reduction. I appreciate your kind attention. Thank you very much.
It's contagious. It's really good to see that. You have another question, please? That thing is on?
Yes, it's on.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor, and thank you very much, Doctor. My own will be more or less a contribution and perhaps a clarification from Doctor. I'm happy that all the three presentations touching about community policing have indicated very cross-cutting issues between these three nations of Africa. However, I think the slight difference here has to do with the policies, the regulations, and how well structured these three different policing services are conducting this activity. It is important that the citizens are involved in whatever work the police are doing. If there is that good relationship existing between these two, you realize the work of the police become much more easier. Don't forget, it is those same citizens that will break the law. It is equally the police that are expected to enforce those laws. So if there is that regular, constant synergy between these two parties, it makes the work of the police very easy. My second point is, I just want to get this clarification from Doctor. You are getting subvention from the central government, from the federal government, right? No, I mean the police. I wanted to say the police.
Oh, that's the police at large,
yes.
not the Lagos.
I'm coming, yes. The police at large are being subvented by the central government. Now, this is the governors of the state. Now, if the state are equally supporting the police, because government cannot provide all the wherewithals that are needed to have a fully fledged functional police force. I think the economy that we are having, of course our economies are bigger than each other. We are aware that in the economy of South Africa, from Nigeria, you can't compare that with tiny nation of Gambia. But what is important here is, if there is that support coming from elsewhere to the security fraternity or to the security sector in running their activities, I hope there is no any form of conflict in terms of us or the police executing their functions without affection or ill will. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I would like...
Well, thank you very much, Doctor. Well, in the case of the Gambia, the roles, responsibilities, and functions of each security establishment is clear as dictated by the Gambian Constitution. The military, their statutory responsibility is to protect the external threats of the nation. The police is wholly and entirely responsible for internal security. We've not witnessed yet any instance where a situation will get out of control and the military will be drafted in to come and support the police in terms of our duties. So in the Gambia, again I mentioned in my speech, three sides of the country is surrounded by another country, which is Senegal. We have a navy, we have the infantry, and we have the Republican National Guards that is responsible for the protection of the executive. But we've not yet have any instance, not to repeat myself, where the military will be forced to come and support the police to regulate matters. I hope that answers your question. Thank you, sir.